Friends, I'm here at the San Diego Mormon Temple, which was built in 1993. Now that year matters because in 1993 I was living in San Diego County. One of my best friends invited me to the opening, wasn't able to go, and have always wanted to see inside a Latter-day Saint temple. So you get to join me on a tour. We won't get to video on the inside, but we'll get some cool audio, and we'll get obviously some coverage at the outside. Going to meet some friends this morning who are going to show us all around.
The temple for us is the closest that heaven gets to earth.
I know it's everything, and Sean, what do you think about this? That is not this video. This video is about learning. This video about education, understanding, and I get to sit down with an expert to talk about what we share in common, maybe some differences. So we're a guest on their turf. Join me to learn a little bit more about Latter-day Saints.
We truly, consider this and believe this to be his house. So we come here as his guests. And so to learn of him, try to become more like him.
So one of the things that surprises people from our temples is they see them from the outside and the size, and they expect it to be a large sanctuary. Mm-hmm. So they're surprised when they come in and they see that it's a series of smaller rooms. There's no space in here for 1,000 people to gather, as big as the building is. But as Kurt mentioned, we consider it the house of the Lord. So like a house, there's different rooms for different purposes. And so that's what you'll see today. And one of the things I hope you'll notice as you walk through is we have a lot of beautiful artwork that reminds us of Jesus Christ. There's paintings of individuals. You'll see not any specific people, but meant to represent Latter-day Saints who are trying to live their faith. You'll see the world, paintings of the world that God has created for us, but mostly you'll see representation of the Savior, so that as we come into the temple, as we're moving through the different rooms, we're constantly reminded of Him and our desire to follow Him. So I hope you know that.
Two quick questions,
Yes,
if I can.
yes.
I think you might have answered this, but at the beginning you said this is the house of the Lord, and the desire is to be like Him. You mean Jesus, not God the Father, or do you mean both? Just for clarity.
I think that both.
Both.
Okay.
In essence, I think that the way that I envision it is that Christ is he is to me sort of the example. So he's an easier example to follow because he lived here in mortality. Okay. And we have it recorded what he is like, who he was, and so to me, and he is basically the same as the Father, right? They are. Oh yeah.
Well, and I'll just add too. He was always pointing to the Father and following Him, and so it's the same thing for us. If we follow Jesus Christ and become more like Him, we're also becoming more like God the Father.
Okay. This is the baptismal font. We believe in baptism, that you have to be baptized just like Christ taught in the New Testament, that everyone must be baptized to enter the kingdom of God. This font is modeled after the Temple of Solomon in the Old Testament. 1 Kings kind of describes font sitting on the backs of the 12 oxen. There are 12 oxen, and every temple it's a little different. Some of them don't have the actual oxen, but they have like an image of oxen on the side. But the intent is that represents the 12 tribes of Israel. Water is usually warm. It's nice to get in, so it's not cold. Nothing special about the water. It's just San Diego's finest, chlorinated.
So in our faith, children get baptized at the age of 8 or older. We feel that age is more of an age where they understand a little more and they can choose to get baptized or not. But that happens in our meeting houses. We have not an elaborate, it's just a nice font in the buildings. And then they can come here when they turn 11, and they can bring names from their ancestors, like their great grandma who may have never knew about the church or was ever baptized, and they can actually do that baptism as a proxy for her. It's a neat thing because it actually is helping them to serve and draw closer to their family, and also it reminds them of the covenants they made when they were 8.
You'll see there, this is not normally there, but that mannequin shows the type of clothing. So you come in your street clothes, and there's two dressing rooms there, locker rooms. Men and women, and then you change. Both the people who are officiating will wear that same jumper, as well as the people who are being baptized on behalf of a deceased relative. And we'll go up to the top and see the confirmation rooms, but that's generally what happens here. I think if there's anything else that.
Yeah, I'll just mention. So you're probably familiar with the fact that our church is really into genealogy, and this is why. Is because we want to find out about our ancestors because we want to come and perform these ceremonies on their behalf. And so that's what got our church started in the genealogy space at our Family Search website. And so that's what a lot of people ask that question: why are you guys so into genealogy? But this is why we want to find out more about our ancestors so that we can come to the temple and provide these ordinances, these ceremonies on behalf of our deceased ancestors.
We believe that they continue living and they have the choice to accept or reject the gift. We consider it like a gift of love. You say, I love my ancestor. I'd like to give them this opportunity. We believe that they exist. Their spirits are alive, and they have the opportunity to accept or reject. In this room here, this is called an instruction room. This is kind of the heart of the temple where most of the activity is going on, is in these 4 instruction rooms. And so the purpose of this room is twofold. One is to learn about God and Jesus Christ. This is where we also make sacred promises that we call covenants. And essentially those promises are kind of building upon your baptismal promise, which is to be a disciple of Jesus Christ and be a witness for him, be a disciple of Christ, follow him. That's the core of the baptism covenant. In this room, the covenants that we make here are we follow law of sacrifice, to sacrifice ourselves, our hearts for God. For our law of chastity, living a chaste and virtuous life, to keep the commandments. What am I missing? Consecration. In other words, consecrate or dedicate our lives to God. So it's really kind of the idea is to we're not going to be perfect at it. And as a matter of fact, like I said earlier, we're probably going to fail more than we are successful. But the idea is we're coming here to make a commitment to really try, give it our best. And again, we're relying on the merits of Christ. So the instruction is is watched through a video presentation. It's about 45 minutes to an hour long. This is a white screen. There's a projector up here. And this, you would go through past, these curtains lift up and you would go into what we call the celestial room. Kind of, another word for it would be the heavenly room. It's supposed to represent in our architecture in this building as heaven. And so it's the most sacred place. Maybe another analogy would be like if you think about the temples in the Old Testament, the Holy of Holies. So that's sort of the same concept here.
So quiet means no talking in here, like at all, but no technology. Like if someone's in their phone, you'd get the look of like, okay, all right.
The phones are actually left in the
Oh, when you come in.
So
You're supposed to leave this world, right?
Yeah.
You're supposed to be thinking of God.
So this is the other 168-foot top here now, okay.
This is where the angel with the trumpet is on top of this.
And it's always above the celestial rim. Oh, not always,
No,
okay.
we often, a lot of our temples don't have a statue of Moroni on them at all.
it's
Okay.
kind of a generational thing. In the beginning, they didn't really do it, and then there was a period where they did, and it was kind of a beloved architectural element, and then now they've kind of strayed from that again. That was like a hip pre and post-war era kind of thing, but
There are many temples that are just one story, and there's like Kim said, so Newport Temple is one story. There's only one of those rooms that we went in, one of those instruction rooms, and there may be just a few small of the rooms that we're going to see now, where the marriage ceremonies are performed, and they're fairly small. So this temple this truly is a very large and kind of extensive building.
But every temple would have the major rooms that you're seeing, baptistry, an instruction room, this room, and then the room that we'll see next, a sealing room, but just different sizes, but those same basic functions in every temple.
Are required, yeah,
there's
that
not
makes
a lot of
sense.
standardization amongst the temples, believe it or not. They give the architects and the artists a lot of leeway to introduce kind of their interpretation of the sacred. So we don't have any mandatory symbols on any of the stained glass. We don't really have any mandatory layouts other than it has to be cohesive to the worship service.
Sure.
And, we obviously don't have any kind of demands on the exterior facade other than a couple of phrases such as holiness to the Lord and let's make sure the parking lot's not too far away for the elderly. So,
as I said, the architects were, one of them was a member of the church. The other two were not. The one that kind of designed this was not. And they asked him to sort of design a space that gave the concept that this is supposed to represent heaven, another plane, another world, not earthly. And so some of the things, so obviously he's built, he has this giant bringing your eyes toward heaven. These interesting architectural features here that look like stalactites. I asked him, because I've always wondered what they were, and he told me, I said, what are those? Is this like drops, or what is it supposed to be? And he said, well, I thought about it trying to be like, in another world there wouldn't be gravity, and so like, these are pillars, but the pillars don't need to touch the ground because there's no gravity, they're just floating, and so that was his concept, that it was just sort of, he said also from an architectural perspective, it brings that big giant ceiling, as the chandeliers, bring it down to you,
Yeah.
so it draws
Sure.
it up.
Can I ask one more question? I was getting a tour of one of the museums on the Salt Lake Temple City grounds, and it was widows, maybe it still is, who would give the tours. Super sweet, older lady, and she mentioned there's something about sealing to her husband. I said, well, can you get remarried? And she said, and you could correct her theology if it's wrong, she said, I could get remarried in a ward, but it'd be for this life, not for eternity. I said, what if your husband had outlived you? And she said, he could get resealed to somebody else here in a way that she couldn't. And my question was, what if he reseals to somebody you don't like, and now you have to share your husband? Like, how does that work?
There are a lot of questions that we don't know the answers to. And it was mentioned earlier, the millennium, when a lot of those things are going to work out. Because, for example, I have a cousin who was sealed to someone, and then he died in his 20s of leukemia.
Wow.
She has remarried and been with him for 40 years. We don't know what that's.
Oh, so she was sealed to both.
No, she was just sealed to the first one.
Okay, she was sealed
But
first.
married
Oh, got it.
four
Okay.
times. We don't know how that's going to work out. There's a lot of questions.
Why wouldn't she be the one who was sealed? Like, that makes the most sense, doesn't it?
And really, I think part of the key is it's about sealing ourselves to God as well. Because there's a lot of individual relationships that are complicated. And we don't know, because some people say, what if I seal my great-great-grandmother to someone and they had a horrible marriage and she doesn't want to be sealed to him? Nobody's going to be forced to be sealed to someone they don't want to be sealed to. That's one of the things I think that is so meaningful to us about
Sure.
temples is it's a place of quiet reflection in a world that's so noisy and so chaotic. For us, it really is symbolic of kind of stepping out of the world and coming to a place where we don't have our phones, where we just sit here and we think about God and his role in our lives and how we want to be like him. And it's just really such a sweet time of contemplation for us. And so, we have a temple in downtown Manhattan. You can go in and find quiet in there. And so that's I think something that's so important to the members of the church about these sacred buildings.
Hey friends, just got a tour for the first time in my life of the Mormon temple here in San Diego. And of course it's obvious I'm a Christian apologist, that I'm not LDS, but being on the inside, in some ways I could say I get it. I could say at least I begin to understand why people are really drawn to this faith. This temple is beautiful. So much work and thought and time went into planning it. Obviously, being on the inside, what's amazing, we have the freeway right behind us, and it's totally quiet on the inside. So I get that. Some of the practices which differ with me as a Christian, and I would take some issue with them, they give people meaning, and they try to tie them to the scriptures in a certain fashion. I understand some people I've met have family going back all the way to Brigham Young. This is their story. And so I'd invite you, even if you meet people who see the world differently, step into their world. Try to see the world as they do, ask questions and understand. It doesn't take away from our convictions. It enables us to have convictions, but just speak more honestly with people who see the world differently. So This is a treat. My hosts were amazing.
Hey guys, Scotty McDowell here. We are at the San Diego Temple, and we're gonna go ask a bunch of Mormons around this temple. What does this new dedication mean to you? Let's go see what they say. What does this new dedication mean to you guys?
I think it's a really great opportunity for everyone to come in and to see what the temple looks like and learn a little bit more about what we do inside.
Yeah, it's been an amazing thing to see the preparation that the community has made to do this open house and open it to the public until it's rededicated. And it's so beautiful and such a great opportunity for everyone and anyone to be able to enter the temple. And temples are just such a special place where we can learn more about our Savior, Jesus Christ. And it's such an amazing experience how this is happening.
So we just got a brand new private tour. It was beautiful. I've never been in the temple before. That was not what I expected, and it was beautiful. I loved being in there. What does this new rededication mean to you guys?
It's a whole cleanup, and it's an opportunity for the people who have never been in the temple to come back and go through it and see what the temple is all about, what ordinances happen there. Mm-hmm. And it's for us, it's exciting to see all the public able to see, like you, to see what it's about.
It's been being remodeled for 3 years, so we haven't been able to go in and participate in the ordinances that take place in the building. And so we're really happy. It's a joyful time for us to be able to, on August 25th, to then also be able to go back to the temple on a regular basis.
Are you part of the LDS Church?
I am, yes.
So why are you a Mormon?
I'm part of this church because it brings me so much joy in my life. Always locked in, keeps me busy. It's a good time.
So what does the new temple, or not really new temple, rededicated temple, what does that mean to you?
I think it's super cool that people who drive by this temple their whole life, they get to see it. They get to come inside for the first time and see what it's like and see what we do in our church.
So what is I'm a Christian, I'm a Protestant, I'm not part of the LDS Church. What is the number one reason why I should become a Mormon or part of the LDS Church?
I mean, it's definitely a personal choice, but living the gospel has been the greatest thing in my life, and I've learned so much good from it. I've been guided by all the gospel teachings, and it's brought me so much joy and huge perspective in my life, and yeah, it's just helped me so much.
Friends, I'm here outside the San Diego Mormon Temple with my new friend who actually arranged a tour for me. Would not be here without him. And you told me that your family goes back to Brigham Young. Now, we're going to get into your faith, what you believe, why, but introduce yourself to our audience, if you will.
Hey, my name is Luke Hansen, and I not co-host, but I'm on the Ward Radio YouTube channel, which is one of the largest Latter-day Saint YouTube channels and live streams on YouTube. So we actually arranged this because I went to the Bless God Summit with Ruslan. So shout out to Ruslan for that summit. And that's how we connected with your team, and we're aware that this was happening. You were close by, and so really excited that this happened. This is cool.
So your family goes back to Brigham Young. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so on my father's side, there are people that go all the way back to Brigham Young. A couple of them crossed the plains, as you might be aware, after Joseph was shot in Carthage, and they crossed over in the 1840s. And then on my mom's side, my grandparents are the first and only converts. And so on my mom's side, I know the first members of the church. And then on my dad's side, it goes almost as far back as you can go.
So what's your story? Did you always believe this? Did you ever go through a questioning period? When did you say you owned it and you wanted to be a Latter-day Saint?
I would say it happened slowly over time. You know, some people say when their first child is born, they had like this revelation of, oh my gosh, I'm a dad, I love this baby. I didn't have that with my kids or with the church. It was that slow process over time. There's some milestones in high school, of course, on your mission, getting married and kind of fully participating in the church in that aspect, but it's been a growth over time. And I love it. And then I've done some apologetics over the past 4 years, which is a new dimension that I don't consider to be foundational to faith. It's more of a spiritual journey, but I do engage that intellect and enjoy doing that as well.
Okay, so I'm an apologist. We want to have a debate right now, but if you were going to say, here's the best apologetic for Mormonism, what would it be?
Oh, the best apologetic for Mormonism? I would say, coming from more of the Protestant perspective, where you guys will emphasize heavily the resurrection of Jesus Christ, I think it's very interesting to compare the witnesses for the Book of Mormon with the witnesses for Christ and see some of the similarities there.
Okay.
That shouldn't be the foundation of your faith, but kind of the spark to get you interested in having a spiritual confirmation of it.
Okay, this is super fascinating. One of the things that my audience is going to want me to do is like show up and debate and prove things wrong. That is not this visit. Turns out I did an interview, a deep dive comparing and contrasting the 11 witnesses of, at the beginning of the Book of Mormon, obviously, and then with the witnesses to the resurrection. So that's coming up. If you guys watch that and are like, hey, let's have a conversation about this and go deeper, let me know and we could lean into that. Now, with that said, what would have happened in your life when you're a Mormon if you'd gone to your parents and been like, basically, I went to my dad, who you may know, apologist, written a ton of books, kind of a pioneer apologist. And I told him when I was 19, we were sitting in a cafe in Breckenridge. I said, Dad, I am not sure that I think Christianity is true. Now, I could tell you what he said and how I processed that, but that's a story for another time. What would the response have been from your family or church if you're like, I don't buy this Latter-day Saint theology?
Yeah, me, along with many other people in the church, have had the experience of family members doing that and how to respond to that. I think almost everybody in the church has, just because we have such large families, so statistically it will happen. My mom especially was very much like, you need to figure this out for yourself. And she started kind of telling me that around the 13 years old age, and not like, you need to know that this is true, you need to get committed to it, but you need to actually ask the questions yourself. And so from my personal perspective, there was that encouragement. And even my mom would tell me, like, I had to do that myself and figure it out for myself. So it's not just we pass it on and you have to keep up the tradition. But if you're going to be committed on your own terms and not on following other people's terms. So it would have been difficult, and it is difficult with other family members, but hopefully not the horror stories that you hear sometimes from either my faith or Jehovah's Witnesses are famous for this as well. So don't think that would have happened.
So we were walking through the temple, and I asked you a question. I said, what does it mean for you to be here? And I asked that because one of the things I try to do is just step in the world of people who see the world differently than I do. And I want to understand intellectually, but I also want to do my best to understand emotionally. And I think sometimes people are afraid to do that because they feel like if I do that, I'm giving up some of what I believe. And I'm like, no, then I can actually better understand somebody and hopefully communicate with them. So I asked you as we were walking through, I don't remember what part it was, maybe we were in the celestial room or something. I said, what is it like for you to be here, given the history of your family, given your beliefs? What was it like for the first time to walk through this temple? Explain to somebody who's an outsider what it means to you.
Yeah, so of course I've been to other temples, and we understand that to all have the same purpose. This was my first time here. The temple for us is the closest that heaven gets to earth. It's almost that connection that happens, and that's often why they have spires going up, reaching up. Heaven comes down to you, you go up to heaven. Outside of the doors of the temple, it says, holiness to the Lord, the house of the Lord. We change our clothes when you go into the temple into all white, which matches everybody else. And so we do everything we can in the temple to make it that place where you most deeply connect with God.
So on a scale of 0 being the lowest, 100 being the highest, how confident are you that Mormonism is true, and why?
Oh, okay. I don't want to say 100, because I think that would be arrogant.
Oh.
I think that'd be a little arrogant. I don't want to be too self-assured, but I would definitely put it around 98.
98%. What gives you doubt? What fills in that 2% of doubt for you?
I mean, it's the same space that occupies that we could be in a simulation kind of thing. Like you can't completely rule it out.
I love that.
You can't absolutely completely rule out I'm a meat computer in a vat.
If you were not a Latter-day Saint, would you be an atheist? Would you be a Muslim? What would you believe if you didn't believe that? What would be second down for you?
We talk about this decently often on Word Radio and amongst each other in like our group chats. Most of us are on Team Roman Catholic.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Because we have the idea that authority needs to come from God going through the ages. And without it, you're kind of rudderless. You don't have that direct, like we're being led by God. I don't want to misrepresent you or anything, but we kind of see it. We don't want a book to be our leader. We want an actual current today leader, and that's what God wants for us to lead us. So Roman Catholic, although I don't know if I could actually do it because you'd have to assent to things like the Marian dogmas that I am not on board with, at least some of them. So maybe I would just be like a mostly believing Roman Catholic that doesn't all the way go through with it because I can't assent to some of the things they believe.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not worried about you offending me or misrepresenting my beliefs. That's what these dialogues are for. I may have missed it, but I didn't see a single cross inside there. Or if there is one, there's certainly not many. Going to Roman Catholic Church, going to a Baptist church, whatever, they're everywhere. Why are they not here, or did I miss it?
Yeah, and we don't have anything doctrinally against the cross, but we prefer to think of Christ in his resurrected state or in his glorified state. And so a lot of our depictions and reminders of him will involve his life. Different stories from his life are represented in artwork in the temple. And then just for example, the celestial room with the presence of God, it's very light, it's very bright, it's very peaceful. We even had 5 seconds of silence to just check and make sure that we couldn't hear the traffic that you might be picking up on the mic now out there. And so we see Christ in kind of that more active in our lives kind of way as the resurrected Savior who's already completed that atonement for us, rather than a focus on the dead version of Christ that the cross kind of invokes. But we don't have anything specifically against the cross.
You're not against it. So how would you understand when Paul says, I preach Christ and Christ crucified? Not Christ resurrected. How would you understand that?
Yeah, I think, I'm sure you've read Tom Holland and his book, Dominion. The cross was, back then especially, a very striking, shocking thing. Like, oh my gosh, this is for the lowest of people. It's the worst form of torture. It's not only very painful, but it's very debasing. And so I think in the cultural context, the cross made a ton of sense to focus on because it was so shocking, like God would do this for us. I don't know if it's become so normalized now that I think what it meant for them and their perception of it might be a little different than for us and our perception of it. So I think it's a very effective symbol, but it's possible that what it could mean for them back then wouldn't have the same impact as today, and that's why Paul was saying that.
That's fair. I would think maybe one difference is I would think we should therefore lean into it more and emphasize it since that's what Paul preached, but that's a conversation for another time. All right, so last question. You've been awesome. We didn't plan any of this. I'm just coming up with stuff on the spot. So I'm an apologist, and I'd like to think that I'm pretty open-minded. I read the Book of Mormon probably, gosh, I'd have to do the math, 15 or 20 years ago. And I got some criticism for this. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I followed what, it says in Moroni 10, pray about it with a sincere heart. I really prayed. I'm like, okay, if this is true, I really should and ought to believe this. Now, my objections and issues aside, if you had somebody like me here persuade me, compel me, convince me that it's true, where would you start and what case would you make?
What the missionaries are taught. And
I don't want to know the missionaries. I want you. You said you've done apologetics 4 years. Make your case.
Okay. I would only use apologetics to try and get you to have an experience with the Spirit, because I believe that the gospel is for everybody and access to it is for everybody. And the fact of the matter is, through most of history, the historical, the archaeological, the intellectual arguments for Christianity or my religion haven't been broadly accessible to the general populace, either intellectually or just an access to that knowledge or historical method. And so I think that God being no respecter of persons, his desired route is something that even the plowboy could understand and access. And so I would try and tap into that. And I would use stuff, for example, we could go down a whole tangent on the problem of evil. I think the pre-earth life is an amazing, not full explanation because there's always difficulties, but an amazing explanation for why evil is the way it is in the world that I don't think the rest of Christianity has access to those kind of answers. I would try and take you down all those routes, but the purpose of it would be to get you in a position where you want to have that personal experience with Christ and be converted that way, the way that is the only accessible way to the vast majority of humankind.
Okay, so a Protestant like me has not experienced the Spirit in that way and need to be open to experiencing the Spirit, and that's what would be transformative to me. I'm not offended if you say that, but I have not experienced it as the way you understand it.
As the way I understand it, however, we are extremely open to, like, if you have any sort of experience with Jesus, that's valid. And it doesn't matter if you think of him as the creedal Jesus, or you're adding on the Marian doctrines, or you're kind of this more pseudo-spiritual person that thinks Jesus is a really great guru.
Right.
If you've had any approach towards goodness, more towards good than towards evil, you are approaching God, and the Spirit operates in that environment.
Okay, so but to get into the celestial kingdom, I got to get temple endowment, follow the prescriptions that we learned about in here to get to the highest level. Okay, so this is maybe where we differ.
And could I add just one caveat? Exaltation is different than salvation.
I understand.
And so vast majority of humankind is not damned to hell for eternity.
Right.
But if you want, full presence and communion with God, then that is the celestial kingdom. It's more of a spectrum.
Okay, that raises so many questions for me. I'll let that go. But maybe, so just so I understand apologetics, and I think I said this is the last question earlier, but your approach would not be, like when I look in Acts, they're like, we were witnesses of this. Jesus fulfilled prophecy. He's risen from the grave. He's appeared to people. The end of John, these things are written so that you may believe. And John is full of claims of being an eyewitness and then testifying. So I would point towards archaeological discoveries. I point towards scientific facts. I would point towards philosophical argumentation. That's what I would consider apologetics. Mm-hmm. Now, whether somebody's open or not is a separate issue. Yeah. It sounds like you take a little bit of a different route, even with an apologist like me, if I heard you correctly.
Yes, and I agree with you that apologetics would be the realm of the more intellectual, historical, archaeological. But for me, it wouldn't. I would not be happy if somebody said, "Oh my gosh, I looked at all the Book of Mormon witnesses, and like this checks out for me. I think I'm going to get baptized." I would be happy to an extent, but I would say, no. It's what's going to get you into heaven. What's going to make you happy in life is not an intellectual assent to the thing that I believe. It's a relationship with Jesus Christ that is what we're going after.
So I would agree with that. No one thinks faith, well, maybe some people do, is just intellectually believing. But the question is, what is faith? And can I trust in something if I'm not convinced that it's true? But that's a whole nother conversation. Thanks for this spontaneous conversation. We didn't plan this at all. I have so many more questions for you, but this is great. Super helpful. Yeah. Appreciate the time. Yeah, well done.
I consider myself invited on your channel then.
I already brought you on, so we could do a follow-up on your channel since you're already on mine.
Well, and
but,
I appreciate you coming out here and doing this. And Salt Lake Temple's coming up soon. 6 months open house, the flagship temple of the church, so hopefully we get more YouTubers out there just to share. Not to try and convince, but just to clear up misconceptions, share what we believe, and have that understanding.
But you do want me to believe, though.
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
Fair enough. And I don't
but
fault
I'm
you.
Happy if you
and
just learn
and you
something.
know what? I don't fault you for that because I feel the same way about others. All right, you heard it. Thanks for tuning into the spontaneous apologetics conversation. That was fun.